And so what we need to do this time is we'll need to have it so that enemies one-shot our shields, which for some enemies was already the case. Ravagers, certainly. Brutes and Banshees, for the most part. Marauders, at least, again, going to use Reapers as the example because that is the enemy that I've faced off against the most often. Marauders, the one exception, although, you know, a quick burst of fire and they would have eventually taken out our shields. So, not a huge difference on Insanity, probably on lower difficulties, that makes more of a difference, but enhanced enemy shields, I'm not sure how significant that is, or it's 10% for our score, but I'm not sure how many additional shields it's really giving them. And then enemy damage boost, okay, makes it a little scarier, and then no ammo, we don't need it that much for ourselves, you know, it helps a little bit to be firing the Hurricane to deal some little bonus damage to help out Garrus and James when we're using that setup we were just using. But as we saw, I mean, they can take care of business by themselves fairly easily, and they don't have any ammo limitations, so not a huge problem for them. What it does affect, though, is also the rate at which we can pick up additional grenades, and that is something that is certainly, at least for sustaining kill streaks, very useful because, as I was saying before, chucking a frag grenade on weak enemies, especially if there are multiple close by, to either extend kill streaks or get one started is really useful. So it means we're going to have a finite number of grenades, which is, I mean, if you just care about finishing the match, not a crucially important detail. You're probably not going to run out of all your grenades, but if you're trying to maximize your score, then that might be a bit of a factor. Then we can also give ourselves a damage boost, and that reduces our score. I don't think this matters for this challenge, this quest at least, because I'm fairly sure we just needed to activate all these. If we really want to, we could do this as well. And kind of help counteract some of that stuff if we'd like to. You know, why not? We'll just activate everything. Oh, and no Metagel. Almost forgot about that. So that one is also a little bit tricky. So we'll accept that, and on net that means plus 50% points. So obviously, if we took off our additional bonus damage, then we'd have plus 60%. If we did that with our combo we were just looking at previously, then we have a whole lot of points racking up. I'm kind of curious to see if we go with again, in the sake of a controlled experiment, I'm kind of interested to see if we go for the same setup here, you know, how much of a difference does that really make? But then again, obviously we could switch things up and go for a different arena, different enemy, we could lower the difficulty, and that would certainly be the easy way out. But I'm kind of intrigued to see if we don't lower difficulty and just stick to our all-star team here. Is that sufficient? We might get our butts handed to us here. There is a chance that that is the case. But I think we're just we'll probably play this one, at least for Shepard, much more defensively. And we'll see how it plays out, because I'm curious. Okay, so again, I'm going to skip, but that means we're going to start in facing the wrong way. So that means just have to manually turn around. I usually stop right here and wait, because it takes a little bit of time before the enemies show us where they're going to spawn in. So then let's put, again, Garrus here, James here. We hang out behind here, and as I was saying, given how we upped the difficulty this time, we're probably going to be hanging out a little bit more in cover and just letting our squad mates carry the team. Because those Ravagers are certainly a little bit scary. But this is a good example of a time where, oh, Ravagers are barriers? What? Since when? But this would be a good example of a bunch of enemies right next to each other. This Ravager is fairly weak. We could grenade it and take it down. We don't have Metagels. So that immediately makes matters more complicated here. We also don't have a way to get the grenades back. So as I was saying before, you know, one use for the grenades is to try to chain together better kill streaks. The other is just taking out enemies. So we do need to be quite careful here now. But given how Garrus is down, I think our goal here may be to try to get rid of these enemies, get them down to just one, and then when it's relatively quiet, like ideally when there isn't a Ravager staring us down, we move into Resurrect Garrus, because we can still get him back up, but we're going to have to run right up next to him and manually revive him, which which is dangerous when there's Ravagers staring us down. The Ravager is trying to flank James, which is bad news for James. And if he goes down, we're in serious trouble. But may mean it's a bit of an opportunity for us to try to get Garrus. Depends how bold we're feeling. There's a brute coming around that side. Tell you what we might want to do. What if we chuck our grenades to try to, excuse me, buy ourselves some time to do that? Okay, we are dead. Defense Matrix helps a lot. James, that was also not the skill that I meant to use. Okay, Garrus is back up for approximately 2 seconds. Also, where is this Ravager hitting us from? We're probably dead because I can't see it. It's over there. So, I don't think you need me to tell you that this is not good news. I don't think you need to tell me. I don't think I need to tell you that this is not good. Because now this is the difference here, is that I think it was the Marauder, is technically the enemy that just broke our shields with one hit, which normally it would not be able to do. So yeah, you can see the bullet coming from that direction. And then it's going to be probably this Ravager is going to one-shot us after that. We can Defense Matrix to get our shield gate back, but we've already lost it. So we survived one additional hit, but it's going to be this Marauder is going to kill us. Probably. Or not. We're hanging on by a thread. Watch it be that Swarmer. It may very well be that Swarmer. Garrus also may be about to die. Garrus is probably about to die. So things probably are not about to get any better for us. Ravager there. Brute is still over there. Ravager is the biggest problem, really, because... Defense Matrix, please. Ravager's the biggest problem because we step out in the open for... Oh, there's... Okay, we're flanked by Ravagers, so we're just dead. Plain and simple, we're just dead. There's no way around it because we are surrounded on all sides by enemies that will pretty much immediately annihilate us. So, yeah, you know, turns out adding all the most difficult modifiers and then still going at the super elite difficulty may have been biting off a little more than we could chew. That's kind of what we expected, but interesting to see how it plays out here. We did manage to get rid of that brute with a grenade, so that is nice. Did James just go down? Where is James? He's over there. He's getting annihilated by the Ravagers instead. We might get killed by the Swarmers. We are going to get killed by the Swarmers. We definitely just got killed by Swarmers. We got killed by Swarmers. I mean, it was gonna be something. It was gonna be something, but it turns out it was the Swarmers, fittingly enough. Most dangerous enemies in the game. Legitimately. We could try again, but no, I think we're probably, as we said, we tested it out. But I think if we are looking to get this challenge done, we are probably going to want to downgrade the difficulty of the enemy. We could go for a different type of enemy altogether, but at the very least, probably looking to, I mean, we could go down to foot soldiers here and kind of intrigued, actually, to see. We haven't done much on collectors. We tried this previously. I think it was on the middle difficulty on elites. And we tried to do it with Jack and with Samara, and we just got clobbered repeatedly. It was brutal. We were struggling big time. And here I was thinking, oh, they have a bunch of damage against barriers, and they have biotics and stuff. It's gonna be great. Not so. But maybe with this team, I'm curious to see how much better they are against it now that this is lower difficulty, but with all the other modifiers. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see how this all adds up. Okay, so again, if you don't skip this, you'll end up facing the correct direction. Pause here for a second, wait for it to show us where the enemies are going to be. Right on top of us.
3, 2,
So let's move.
1. Starting round 1.
Go around back here, and in this case, we'll have Garrus on the right side, James on the left side, and we should probably take this spot over here. This is the more aggressive position, and again, technically it is perhaps a little bit safer to go to that side. Enemies tend not to come at you first and foremost quite as often, whereas this time, any enemy that's trying to flank is going to come after us, not against our teammates.
Kill streak.
But it is just, at least at the moment, normal collectors, so that may mean things won't be too difficult for us here, as we've gone from the highest difficulty to the lowest difficulty, at least in terms of the types of enemies. But obviously shifting over from Reapers to Collectors, going from what may have been the easiest type of faction to what is probably the most difficult faction. No, that is not what I wanted you to do. That is what I wanted you to do. Whoa! I did not see you. Sneaky little collector. I think it might be the last enemy as well, which means this would be the ideal time to try to revive Garrus. Let's do it.
End of round 1.
Ooh, good timing. Okay, so I think on this occasion we're not really going for the points. It is right over here, which is convenient, but as we're seeing, that is right where the enemies are spawning, so that's less than ideal. Okay, so let's put James here, Garrus here again, and maybe we'll try going on the right side this time. So in my first few attempts going up against all those Reaper waves, this was my go-to spot. I think it's a little safer, but I think it is not as good in terms of getting clean line of sight of enemies, because oftentimes it's just this awkward angle here, and enemies will sometimes hide behind this, and it's just not the easiest place to hit them from.
3.
Okay, Abominations make me a little nervous given all the difficulty settings that we put on.
4.
So I think trying to throw them away from our squad mates, even if it doesn't necessarily serve as the best source of damage, just to make it so they don't blow up on our squad mates, is an intriguing thought. Okay, that's a Collector. Yeah, Collector Trooper is hanging out behind this cover. As I was saying, we actually kind of have the angle on it there, but it can be a little bit hard at times to hit those guys from that spot, and they do like to hang out there when you're in this position. There's another Abomination. Let's throw it away, especially because it's getting possessed. So that is no good. Okay. Now, deal with you.
I'm on it.
Oh, more enemies here than I realized. Oh, partly because that is a web. Usually that means there's some other bigger collector next to it. I was kind of thinking that that grenade was going to take out not only the web, but whoever created the web. Maybe not. There's that collector still hanging out over there. Perhaps, but our squad mates are taking care of him. This trooper, Garrus is about to get his overload back, which is probably the most efficient way to take care of you. And one of the reasons, the other reason why I really liked going against the set of Reaper enemies that we were going against before was because they never throw grenades.
Round 2.
Again, that's not a terrible spot to pick up the bonus, but I'm deliberately just gonna hang out here.
5.
Okay, they're spawning down below, so I think our current position is fine. They're just going to take a little longer to get here. Why don't we proactively throw out a Singularity, which one of the downsides against the Reapers is they're... In Wave 1, there's quite literally no one who's Singularity-able, at least not until you strip the shields from the Marauders. On lower difficulties, obviously there's a whole lot more options.
Kill streak.
Yeah, I think top priority, though, is to try to deal with as many of the Abominations as possible, as early as possible, so they don't do that right on top of us, because if they do, then we could get things to get a lot more complicated. Oh, that's that. Speaking of Abominations. Okay, fortunately, that one was far enough away that it did not pose too much of a threat. Troopers, captains... I think Garrus's overload is not... It might have one chain, but it's not spec for many chains. close enough together that, yeah, I think that's a good opportunity for a grenade. Go, some explosions as well. So yeah, these collector troopers, I believe, are theoretically capable of throwing grenades. Just heard what I thought was a Praetorian sound, which is a little alarming.
9.
Okay, we're actually racking up the kill streaks now, which is also, of course, good stuff. So this would be a situation in which I would say, you know, you might deliberately try to go crazy on the grenades from James. Try to, like, he's taking a little while to do this, though. Try to get as many kills as possible, as quickly as possible, to sustain the streak. I'm not sure if he got the enemy I was looking for, though, because all I can see right now is the plague. I'm actually not sure. I think that can also, I assume, one-shot our shields. For some reason, I looked over here, saw a red mark on our minimap, and thought that Garrus was a Scion, which was rather alarming. Okay, it appears as though this is the last enemy. We don't really have anything that we need to do right now. And that was round 3. So, yeah, certainly a lot easier when you bump it down to foot soldier difficulty with all the other modifiers on it. The score, I mean, almost up to 6,000 for the gold prize, but it will be silver. As we said, not really looking to push the limits here score-wise, but, oh, also, I forgot to mention this, but if you had any doubts about the legitimacy of the million-plus credits that we picked up from the Combat Simulator a little while back that I did in between streams, just look at the total career score, and that's a pretty high number. So there's your proof in the pudding. That's a whole lot of 10,000-plus point matches added together. And this time, timing-wise, about the same duration, but obviously weaker enemies, just more difficult modifiers. And as you're saying, that one is a silver prize, and since we don't have anything else remaining reward-wise other than just redeeming stuff for credits, that's what we'll do here. So it's 3,000 for the silver. That's, you know, not a huge difference maker, but it's something.
Commander Shepard's going to be hard to beat.
The number of times I've heard that conversation is over 100. I can tell you that definitively. Let's see at our emails if there's any update after having done that match, which was requested of us. Memory leak isolated. Okay. So AAA Information Technology Department, Commander Shepard. Interesting news. The memory leak isn't caused by scoring at all. There's a program running in the background that is siphoning off resources. We're not certain of the full extent of the errors the program introduces. The running joke is that our arena was constructed on an old Prothean burial ground. We'll need a live test to find out more. Please test the spin zone map, the map we've been doing, against Geth elites with their enhanced enemy shields enabled. We think that by doing so, we'll have a good shot at discovering what the real problem is. Just as a precaution, we've attached a waiver to this message for you to sign. It's mostly a formality to say your next of kin will not litigate. See you inside. Same team member from the Armex Arsenal Arena team. So that's the next one on our list here. We got a little bit of reputation from the one that we just did. And we also got a pistol power magnifier, which is what we have as one of our active mods on our Acolyte, which for the arena runs, we haven't been looking at so much. We've been just sticking with the Hurricane for actually dealing weapons damage directly, rather than maximizing power damage, although you could make the case, I suppose, for switching over to the Acolyte for... Actually, did we put the SMG power magnifier on as well? We might have. We might have. But anyways, so a little bit of a mod bonus as well. But now, we have, for this one, the need to do Spin Zone, which, like I said, is the map that we've actually been doing for several attempts here. Fight Geth elites, so that would mean the middle level. And so... Geth. And for Geth, elites means up to the Pyros, which are pretty dangerous, because at close range, they just have ridiculous amounts of damage that they can pour out. And then we're supposed to activate... oh. Am I looking at the right one? Oh, No, I pressed on the wrong one. I'm looking for this. Swarm modifiers. We're supposed to activate the enhance enemy shields, but let's turn off the other ones. And I think we might even be able to put player extra damage on. And the reason why I say that might be a good idea is because do not be fooled. Do not be fooled. You might say to yourself, well, Lids, the first quest that we did for this one required that we go up against super elite enemies. This one is only against normal elite enemies. The one that we just did had us activate all of the negative modifiers against us. Surely that's more difficult than being on the middle difficulty and only having one negative modifier. To which I say, oh dear child. I am so sorry. Because let's just say, the first time that I did this challenge, my initial Mass Effect 3 playthrough, that is what I thought. I thought, oh, this one will be a breeze. We'll just, you know, throw whatever experimental team we want in there, and we'll be fine for this one, because it will be comparatively a fair bit easier than the ones that we did previously. No, no, no. Without going into spoiler territory, let me just say, do not treat this one as a reprieve from the difficult showdowns. No, bring your A-team. Bring your A-team. In fact, we are definitely going to want to bring Garrus for this one. I do like James a lot for going against Reapers. However, he is a bit of a Reaper specialist in that he has the incendiary ammo, which is, of course, good against armored enemies, and there are a lot of armored Reapers, and not much in the way of other forms of defenses outside of shields on the Marauders, but they're relatively weak enemies, so that's not a huge deal, and barriers on the Banshee, but Garrus does so much damage with the Typhoon, and to a certain extent James does as well, that's not a big problem. But if we're gonna, say, go up against Geth, and they're gonna have a whole lot of shields, then that's not really something that James specializes in as much as someone like Edie with her powers, Ashley with her disruptor ammo and high weapons damage that, at least the way we expect it, is actually more significant than James' weapons damage. Tally also good against shields, and outside of that, assuming he has overload, and it does technically have a lot of weapons damage as well, although still not quite as comfortable bringing her along with us here. Miranda, obviously, amazing assortment of powers, and so not packing nearly the weapons damage that Garrus is packing, but maybe can make up for it with just the amazing assortment of abilities that she has that can fit any situation. And Zaid also has solid weapons damage and does have the disruptor ammo. I forget exactly how we spec Zaid, because I think we had we got a little bit unconventional with our approach with him. So had we not done that, I would say he might be a better fit for taking as our second character here. But it might be a little bit safer if we go with Ashley here. Now, as I said, take not only your A-team here, take a team that is you're comfortable with in any situation. So we're thinking about Garrus' strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, Garrus packs ridiculous amounts of weapons damage. Really good against armor, at least for single target damage with his weapons. So bosses, he can take them down really quickly and efficiently. Crowd control is probably his biggest weakness, because overload can, I think we have it spec to hit 2 enemies, but that's it. And the second enemy that gets hit is not getting hit for that much damage. So it's not that useful for dealing with a high number of enemies. Obviously, as a biotic, we have some ability to, pretty good ability to deal with that, but when enemies are shielded or have barriers or have armor, then we have considerably less ability to slow them down than we would if they were unprotected, where we can just singularity them and completely disable them. So Ashley, although she does also pack a whole lot of weapons damage, she does not have great crowd control either. She does have Inferno Grenade, and so that gives us at least one more solid AoE ability. Unlike James's Frag Grenade that deals a chunk of upfront damage, high chunk of upfront damage, Ashley's Incendiary Grenade is actually damage over time. So it can prime for fire explosions, which is nice. We can detonate them with Warp. I think we can detonate them with Overload as well with Garrus. But we're probably, and Throw for us, but we're probably going to be the primary people detonating because we're going to have faster cooldowns than Garrus does, and Garrus, for the most part, anytime we have him use his power, we're interrupting his Typhoon firing, and generally that's something that we just want him to be focusing on 100%. So there is still definitely a bit of a weakness with this composition in that in terms of quick ways to deal with large groups of enemies, we don't have quite the same ability to do that, at least not with our squad mates. So that's probably going to be an important responsibility that we have for Shepard, but perhaps that's okay. So we'll take our chances here with this team, and I think this is one of the ones where some experimentation may be necessary. So again, it's Spin Zone, it's Geth, it's Elite, not Super Elite, and we need the enemy shields, and then I think we're still allowed to throw on the player damage bonus. It'll be pretty apparent right off the bat if we are not allowed to do that. But, and then Garrus, obvious inclusion. The question for the second squad mate is mostly, do you try to find someone who covers for Garrus's weaknesses, few as they may be? That would primarily be crowd control. Or do you just say, go all in on dishing out as much damage as you can as quickly as possible, and if the enemy doesn't exist, then they can't hurt you. So, which actually is not entirely true, as some enemies do have dying animations that deal damage or explode on death, but that's an aside. So I think we'll try this. I think we'll try this setup. Again, a little experimental because I'm not necessarily sure that Ashley is the best person to pair along with Garrus, because she has, in some cases, the same strengths that Garrus has, and sort of the same weaknesses. Let's just double check what Ashley's weapon loadout is looking like at the moment. And we may switch back to our other armor, just because I'm thinking we might want to play this one safe a little bit here. So Typhoon and Javelin, that makes sense. The mods look fine. That seems good. And I think I may deliberately swap back over to the additional health and shields, just because that may be pretty important for this upcoming showdown here. Make sure you save before you take on this challenge. Make sure you save before you take on this challenge, because if you can't tell, this one's it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. And the first time that I tried this on my initial Mass Effect 3 playthrough, I just went in expecting, a normal match. And let's just say got a little caught off guard by it. So, what exactly am I referring to? What exactly are we about to walk into? We're about to find out. Excuse me? Fatal error? Okay, things look a little different from what they looked like before. The music feels off. Yeah, again, fatal error doesn't really sound like something that we want to be seeing or reading here. So let's take a second here to make sure that we have the ammo set up properly, the weapons set up properly. Typhoon looks good. And in terms of where we want to set up shop, obviously the layout here is not exactly what it was previously in our other Spin Zone arena attempts, and so it's not as straightforward as just setting up shop where we were before. I mean, this area kind of looks nice. Over here, there are several angles from which we have some cover, so I think I might prefer that. And this, I suppose this looks like it's the same thing over here. Kind of symmetrical, just one side is blue and one side is kind of orange. Okay. Let's jump down. Enemies spawning on exactly the opposite side. So why don't we head over here?
2, 1, round 4.
Round 4, they say, as we are just getting started here. That's not concerning. Let's put Garrus here where he has right-hand advantage. Is technically why I'm trying to put Garrus always where his right side is open, because technically every character is right-handed, where they can kind of poke out of cover to the right-hand side and still shoot while they're in cover. And so That means you want to try to put your best characters for weapons damage where they can poke out to the right side and still shoot, and that is obviously Garrus.
Okay.
So, here's the thing. Remember how we were supposedly fighting normal elite Geth in the Spin Zone Arena? This doesn't look like the Spin Zone Arena anymore, not the Spin Zone Arena we signed up for. And that does not look like a Geth. That is because something has gone horribly, horribly wrong. And that's a Praetorian. And these are collectors. And this is the equivalent of the super elite collector showdown on wave 1, no less. So, needless to say, that does complicate matters quite considerably. Let's see what we can do here. We'll try to take out 2 Praetorians, in fact, as quickly as possible. Fortunately, Garrus's damage is absolutely insane. So we just want him to focus on the big stuff, but we'll try to deal with the abominations here. Do we have Scions? Honestly, I might be more concerned about Scions than I am about Praetorians, because Scions have high damage as well. They also have the ability to shoot grenades quite effectively. And that can flush us out of cover, and we seem to have a pretty solid spot here at the moment. A lot of possessed abominations, of course, those are the ones that explode. So you have to be careful of them. Fortunately for Shepard, at least, we have a very nice way to deal with them. With our Singularity plus Warp combo. That's the last enemy, it's another abomination. Okay, kill streak. And that appears to be...
Comment not found. Enter input.
Oh. I think for the most part, we're probably not going to be rushing for bonuses here. Let's just see where enemies spawn in, and they're spawning in directly on top of us, so we got to go.
4.
Maybe we are moving toward that bonus. We're not going to get it in time, I don't think. But it is still round 4, and this time, what do we have here is a Geth Prime. And so this now shifts over from the Collector's Wave 3 Super Elite enemies to the Geth Wave 3 Super Elite enemies. Garrus might have a little bit of trouble here, as he's kind of caught out in the open. Please stay in cover, Shepard. So the biggest enemies in this time round will be the Primes. Pyros as well, though. That makes me very nervous, because if the Pyros get up close to us, they can just absolutely annihilate us. And this is kind of what I was referring to before, is that although we do have a lot of weapons damage, we don't have great crowd control options, whereas if we had, say, brought Tally along with us, she would have the ability to sabotage a Geth Pyro and cause it to turn against all of its allies. That would be amazingly effective for this wave. So, does make me a little nervous. Garrus is... Oh, and there's a Pyro right there, in fact. So, let's get Garrus back up, and we'll try to deal with this Pyro as quickly as possible. Because otherwise, it's going to be a huge issue. It is definitely top priority now, because it is shooting at us. Okay, it's dead though. There is definitely going to be another one though. In fact, that other one is right on top of us. So what we can do here is we can Inferno Grenade it, which primes it for a fire explosion, and then detonate that fire explosion with Garrus's Overload. Then let's throw, and I think it's down, yes. So that one's taken care of, but now we have this Geth Pyro moving in, and they are so fast. They are so fast. I think, and we're not going to be able to use Garrus's Overload. That's going to be on cooldown. Inferno Grenade does not have a cooldown, but of course we have a limited supply, and we are about to blow through that limited supply. There's another Pyro down there. It's just too many Pyros, man. I think they are still a bigger danger, bigger threat than the Primes, so I think we just go after them here. No, Garrus, we need you, man. Yeah, I'm not sure that either of our squad mates are really in sufficient cover here.
Got it.
see if we can warp that prime, or rather pyro, but it does do a good job of ducking into different areas. Okay. That might be the last of the pyros, but we have also used the last of Ashley's Inferno Grenades, which is a little bit concerning because that was our best source of burst damage. We do still have the cluster grenades, but those are considerably harder to target because the Inferno Grenades instantly hit the target that you have highlighted, whereas the Inferno Grenades do, because they're coming from Shepard, have the trajectory and they bounce all over the place, so they are considerably harder to deal with. Now I think that we're just looking at the primes. We can take them out, and we can go with a more direct weapons damage route. Which I am hoping we will find particularly effective, although Garrus has gone down again. Okay, there is this combat drone behind us that I think we would like to, ideally, overload so that it does not take us out. And that should take care of this prime. There is another one that has spawned in the meantime. I don't understand what our squad mates are doing. They keep on abandoning the cover that we've told them to take. Is odd. This is the last enemy, it would appear. We can distract it a bit. Okay. That wave is down. We'd love to grab, I mean, the bonus and perhaps more importantly, that grenade. So once again, they're spawning right on top of us.
3, 2, 1. Round 4.
There is a grenade pack right there, which is tempting to pick up. Oh, Ashley got back to full grenades? How did that happen? I'm honestly not sure. Okay, this time it's Cerberus. Again, the equivalent of Wave 3 of the Super Elite difficulty. And so that means Atlases, and I hope not Phantoms, but it might include Phantoms as well. If it does, that is another enemy that we do not have a great answer for, I'm afraid. Let's see, that looks like a Dragoon, which... That is definitely a Dragoon. The smoke is difficult for us to deal with because we cannot target enemies directly through it. Our squad mates are unfazed by it, though. So I think if, actually, if you could, you know, like, use the ability that I just told you to use, that'd probably be helpful. I'm just theoretically speaking. Theoretically speaking, that would be helpful. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That Dragoon is about to try to hit us as well. This Dragoon is about to try to hit us. And the Atlases are still looking in this general direction, so, we've been flanked 2 times over and cornered big time. And we don't have our cooldown for our defense matrix, so we are about to die to these Dragoons, is what is about to happen. That is not going to work.
William is down.
Ooh, more Dragoons. Okay. We almost got rid of this Dragoon, but not quite.
Kill streak.
Somehow we have the kill streak. We might have gotten rid of all the Dragoons. I'm pretty sure I just told them to shoot at the Atlas they were not actively shooting at. Actually, it would... Oh, I really thought she was facing the opposite direction for a second there. think that was the last enemy.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's combat night in the Armax Arsenal Arena.
Is it now?
4,
Hey, they're just always spawning in that spot.
2,
I don't know if that's coincidence that happens to keep on happening, but it has continued to happen here. Let's actually go Garrus here, Ashley here, and so we have
arena action after this word from our sponsors.
we have faced off against Collectors first, Geth second, and Cerberus third, and that means now we are up to the equivalent of Wave 3 Super Elite Reaper enemies. This is, of course, the setup that we were going up against consistently with James and Garrus, arguably our best one, although that was with James and Garrus. So slightly different team composition this time around, and probably not as much room to work with here. And I'm concerned already about the lack of attention being paid to the Banshees. Because they are potentially quite a problem. Unless we just grenade them all.
7, 8,
Husks,
9,
certainly solo, not that big of a problem.
maximum kill streak.
Maximum kill streak.
And
There.
now a word from our sponsors. Shepard, we have partial control of the system and are doing what we can.
That's encouraging, I guess.
7-second delay. Wait, why is she saying my words? Shut that mic off. 4,
Okay, and now we have enemies spawning on the other side. We could potentially try to move our butts over to the far corner here and give ourselves a little more time to work with. Then theoretically, it's possible that our opponents may be able to flank us from both sides. Then again, that was already happening pretty much every single time
the Armax
anyway.
Arsenal Arena would like to
So I'm not sure that's really any worse than what we already had going for us. We do kind of have no longer high ground here, and not a clean line of sight on the spawn point, unfortunately. But now what we have is a combination of all the big enemies from all of the groups that we were fighting before. So that just didn't go. What could possibly go wrong? Make a prime down. Let's focus on this Banshee that's trying to rush us down here. Okay, it is down. But we have some friends coming right here. Friends that can cause a lot of trouble. Okay, Torian is down. Now, next priority is shooting at something over there. I think there was an Atlas. There's this Prime over there. It's far enough away that it's not yet a huge threat. I can't really tell how close this Atlas is. I think maybe we try going for that. Technically, we should have primed it first with the Inferno Grenade and then use the Overload, but we can warp you to detonate as well. But it's not going to be nearly as effective against shields. Okay, the Atlas, I mean, it is shieldless. I know, I was just saying that we were going to go for the Prime, but that was in large part because I couldn't see what was happening with the Atlas. There is, we need you shooting, man. I also was not sure if that was going to hit us. There is. We need you, buddy. Yeah, Atlas just exploded. We took that out, and it looks like this Prime is now the last enemy. So let's go after that. We'll warp to weaken it. We will definitely get Garrus back up. It does seem like our consumables are coming back. We just have infinite consumables. No, surely not, because we saw we ran out of grenades previously. Down goes the Prime.
Now a word from our sponsors. Shepard, we found the source of the problem. Congratulations on the win.
And that is the Fatal Error mission. A little bit of a surprise if you were not prepared for everything to go horribly, horribly wrong and to get the most difficult possible combination of enemies based on the most difficult wave of all the other factions individually, and also at the very end there, a combination of them all simultaneously, which is why you need to be super careful in this mission and not get your guard down based on how it's just Geth on the middle difficulty, 1 difficulty modifier. What could possibly go wrong, right? Everything could possibly go wrong. And the first time that I tried this on my first Mass Effect 3 playthrough, I did not know that was going to happen. And I did, in fact, take what was a weaker, more experimental team. I forget who exactly I took. I want to say Liara was one of them, and maybe Kasumi as well. And not to knock either of them, but of course we saw Garrus and Ashley packing on the weapons damage was very helpful. And basically what it turned into was that both of those squad mates, whoever they were, I think it was Liara, I'm not as certain about Kasumi, but both of those squad mates went down almost immediately in every wave. And me playing as an infiltrator Shepard, basically it turned into Shepard cloaks and very slowly whittles away at the enemies while they hopefully don't see me and just play the war of attrition. And eventually, I think I did still manage to get the job done, even with that suboptimal loadout where I was not expecting for the enemy to throw absolutely everything at us, but still made it work. And here we see we did get a 10 kill streak. In fact, we might have gotten that several times over. On net, we had 1 beneficial modifier, 1 detrimental modifier, so it netted out to 0%. So yeah, it does work, even if you put on the additional damage for us. We did put that on, so that definitely helped to make it so that Ashley and Garrus could take down those big enemies even quicker than usual. And who knows what it would have been like if we hadn't done that. But, I mean, when they were focusing fire on things like those primes, those banshees, they did shred them to pieces. It was just mostly when there were a bunch of enemies that flooded us down, like when we were on the Cerberus wave and we got surrounded by Dracoons. It really looked like we were toast for a while, but we somehow made it work. And after you factor in the modifiers, that was 15,000 points on that go-around. So certainly, if you did not manage to break the 9,999 point threshold in any of your other matches, chances are pretty good you'll find a way to make it happen here. We even heard the AI going absolutely crazy, and they were trying to communicate with us through the AI. The engineers behind the arena were trying to communicate with us through the AI, and initially it was just complete nonsense. Then there might have even been some trash talk to a certain extent, but then eventually you could, between the total nonsense, make out that there was some kind of communication, like, Shepard, just hold on, we're close to figuring it out. And then eventually, thank goodness, congratulations, that went horribly wrong, but we found out what the problem was and we fixed it. For what it's worth, other little detail there, if you do go down in that fatal error mission, it is not like the other challenges, the other arena runs, in which it just says, oh, you know, better luck next time, try again if you'd like, and you have the option to reset. No, that's because that's a simulation. With the fatal error one, that was the real deal. If you die, you get a game over. Thank you for your service. From the AAA Information Technology Department, Commander Shepard, I wanted to extend our company's sincere apologies that the last test put you in physical danger. We knew there was a potential risk, but we thought we could control the safety levels in case they nulled out. We have never been so wrong. That said, your efforts managed to let us stabilize the level, and we no longer have a memory leak. The simulator scores have been adjusted to their correct levels, putting you at the top of the leaderboard. And the fans seem to have enjoyed the unscripted brush with death, because yes, as I said, technically, those were real enemies, not just simulated enemies, and so if you do go down in that specific mission, it's game over. If you continue to compete in the future, our team is happy to inform you that the layout Fatal Error has now been corrected, so feedback is at safe levels. If you'd like to utilize it, we're pretty sure the audiences will tune in again. Thanks for your service, Commander. Again, the Principal Systems Administrator of the Armex Arsenal Arena, Virginia, Ryujan. So, now if we'd like, we are allowed to go in and select Fatal Error as at least a map. I believe if you choose this exact loadout with Spin Zone, Geth, and elite enemies with the additional enemy shields, then you can, I think you can still redo that exact loadout, or that exact composition where the enemies throw every powerful type of enemy against you in 4 waves, including a combination of all the most difficult enemies in Wave 4. But I think that's still the case, whereas if you select Fatal Error as one of the locations, then, yeah, as we see here, you get the layout, but you don't necessarily get those enemies unless, actually, I guess, yeah, unless you set up, actually, the normal spin zone, like we were just saying, Geth, elite enemies, extra enemy shields. So this is just for if you wanted to, say, fight Foot Soldier Reapers in that specific arena, then you can do so. If you just like the Fatal Error arena, because it was different from Spin Zone, then you have the option of revisiting it here. So, that is, by some accounts, the most difficult encounter you could make the case in the entire game. Obviously, we planned it out so that we had a strong setup for it. Garrus, definitely a big addition, and I think actually worked out pretty well, too. We had some concern that maybe Ashley was going to be too similar to Garrus, and we weren't going to quite have enough crowd control, and, you know, there were times where against Geth, we had some pyros that were close to rushing us down and flaming us to death. Fortunately, we were still in decent cover then, but if we had some, like, Tally to sabotage them, that could have been a nice way to deal with them. If we had additional crowd control, we might have been able to more readily deal with the all the Dragoons, which, I forget if I mentioned this before, but Dragoons actually don't exist in the campaign, which I did not realize, outside of the arena, because they are all over the place in Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, so I'm quite familiar with them for that reason, but this is actually, might be the first time you're ever encountering them if you do not play Mass Effect 3 multiplayers in the Cerberus missions in the arena, but yeah, that was probably the closest we came to death. There were several times when it looked like those Dragoons were going to take us down, but we just barely scraped by, so there, you know, potentially might be better options to deal with them. I mean, Inferno Grenade is not bad, but since they do have armor, and Inferno Grenade is good against armor, and it does have an AoE, and it can stagger them, but, you know, having Ashley and James, for example, where you can go, in fact, they might even be able to instantly get rid of or almost instantly get rid of all of those Dragoons. If they're all right next to each other, you throw a cluster grenade, or rather an Inferno Grenade with Ashley, that hits them all and primes them all for a fire explosion. Then you use James with his frag grenade to detonate all of those, or technically I guess you're only detonating one of those fire explosions, but if they're right on top of each other, right next to each other as they were in that encounter, then you're going to hit them all with that fire explosion. And because grenades don't have a cooldown, as long as you have enough grenades, grenade capacity, then you can do that again. Throw one with Ashley, detonate it with James, rinse, repeat. And you can just do this until you run out of grenades, and so if you are just desperately trying to get rid of all these Dragoons directly on top of you, you can do that, and because it's going to stagger them pretty much non-stop and deal tons of damage to them, that could be a really effective way, at least if you're trying to specialize against Cerberus. Then, so, let's see, other than that, Reapers, as we were saying, we were doing a whole lot of that with Garrus and with James. Actually, the composition, I should say, the composition of enemies that we encountered there was not exactly identical to the Wave 3 composition for Super Elite, because Wave 3 Super Elite, at least for Reaper, since, again, I'm most familiar with that one since I did it 100 plus times, that is a combination of, it's just one Banshee, I think 2 Husks, and 2 Brutes, whereas what we saw in Fatal Error was 2 Banshees, so 1 additional Banshee. That was kind of scary, did not expect to see that. No brutes, which was... I mean, brutes are not actually that threatening, because they're so slow, and Garrus can deal a ton of damage to them, so probably would have preferred if we had 2 brutes instead of 1 additional Banshee. But then, definitely more husks than we saw in the round 3 of the Super Elite Reaper Showdown as well. So that one, at least for us as Shepard, we could just singularity them all, and that made it very easy to deal with them. So the biggest issue was definitely just the Banshees, having 2 of them in what is, I think, a smaller arena than the usual spin zone. And so, and they spawned pretty close to us, so they rushed us down quite quickly. And so that was a little threatening, but still, Garrus is really good against Reapers, and James, obviously, is who we were using when we were going against Reapers in the past. But Biotics tend to work really well against Reapers as well, especially given how there are a lot of husks there, so if that becomes an issue, then bringing someone like Liara, or bringing someone like Javik could be useful. Bringing one of the Krogan to help deal with the husks might not be a bad idea. So, at Jack, again, the Biotics could be useful. Samara could be useful with the Biotics. Zaid has fire abilities as well. Inferno Grenade, which is good for their armor, but again, that'd probably be best for brutes, and since there aren't any brutes in that encounter, maybe less so. Then, which one have we not discussed yet? Collectors. Collectors, that one I feel the least qualified to say, because I have not done much against them in the arena here. We saw Garrus did deal with the Praetorians quite effectively, so surprise, surprise, Garrus is probably a good addition. That's why we absolutely wanted to include him. We tried previously using a Biotics-heavy team against Collectors with Jack and Samara because Jack has warp ammo, and in theory, Biotics tend to do good damage against barriers and biotic explosions as well. It didn't work so well for us when we tried doing that. That was when we were going on the elite difficulty collectors, and that had a bunch of scions. Those were the big troublemakers. Fortunately, there were no scions in this matchup in Fatal Error against collectors, so I actually think that that might have been easier for that reason. I think, as I said at the time, the scions throwing cluster grenades at you, which forces you to, and it's just a whole bunch of them, and dealing tons of damage, basically forces you to immediately get out of cover, and in such a small arena where the enemy closes in on you so quickly, that could cause you to get in some serious trouble. So I think for the collectors, you're probably just looking for a bunch of weapons damage from Garrus, and Ashley was fine. You could probably bring James as well. He'd do okay for the weapons damage. Anyone who has access to assault rifles and weapons damage modifiers like Zaid. Again, we built Zaid a little bit odd, but certainly possible to do some similar stuff with him. I forget how much weapons damage Jacob can get, but I think he's... Oh no, he's shotgun and heavy pistol? I don't think he has access to assault rifle, so no Typhoon for him. But, Samara technically does have access to Typhoon, but she's more of a biotics person, generally speaking. Grunts, maybe. But, so if you're having trouble with any one of those waves, then maybe that helps you get a sense as to how you might want to experiment a bit with your team composition. Basically, I think Garrus is a safe bet no matter what. And then pick your second squad mate just based on whichever wave you're most concerned about, and obviously it varies a little bit as well depending on what class Shepard is. As I was saying, for us as an adept, the husks against the Reapers was no big deal at all. Abominations for the collectors, not that big of a deal, as long as we were aggressive and trying to crowd control them. Whereas the other waves where we could not readily crowd control the secondary enemies like the Dragoons for the Cerberus and the Pyros for the Geth, that was much tougher for us, at least theoretically. So that's where, having someone who's a little more of a specialist on that stuff, like maybe Tally, could have been useful. But we managed to pull it off with a combination of Ashley and Garrus in what is, again, potentially, in some way, shapes, and forms, arguably the most difficult encounter in the entire game, potentially the entire series. because you just get all of the most difficult enemies in one case at the same time.